Welcome to a very special episode of the Smart Art Business Podcast. My name is Rachel Wilkins, and I am your art business coach here to help you succeed and thrive as an artist. Today is a super special day for me, as it's the 1-year anniversary of the launch of my book, Sellout. As a gift to you, our amazing listeners, I've put together a bundle of art marketing goodies designed to help you reach more people and sell more art. It's called the Sellout Playbook, and it is yours today for whatever you decide you want to pay for it. That's right, over $500 worth of training, workbooks, and much more for whatever you decide. You determine the price, folks. So go to theselloutplaybook.com and grab the entire bundle today. All right, folks, welcome to the Smart Art Business Podcast, the first episode of 2022. We are here in January with a very special guest joining us today. Very appropriate to kick off the year with artist, witch, and astrologer Lydia Knox. Lydia, welcome to the show. It is an honor and a privilege to have you for the first episode of the year.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Fantastic. So we're in for a treat because Lydia is going to give us a guide into what to expect from this year as we come out of two very strange and confusing years. Lydia's also going to look a little bit at my chart because Lydia's been doing artist astrology readings. So she's going to give you a taste of what this might look like for you. And then we're going to tell you how you can get your own personal reading with Lydia. But before we do any of that, give me a bold statement about what to expect from 2022.
So things are going to get better. They're not necessarily going to go back to normal, but things are going to get better.
Oh, praise be. That's music to all of our ears. I don't think we could take any more, so I'm very glad to hear that. So now that we know we're stepping into some safer ground, let's talk about, well, let's get right into January. Tell us what we're looking at in January.
Well, yeah. So right now, Venus has gone retrograde. So Venus, the planet of love in Capricorn, which has to do with ambition and striving forward and setting goals and stuff like that, is kind of going retrograde. So we're kind of forced to slow down. Things have been bottlenecking. And Venus is like a really important planet for artists. It's not just the planet of love, it's also the planet of creativity. So if you've been feeling uninspired or that you can't really do your work or you're not really feeling good about your goals, don't worry about it. This is a time of gestation. It'll get better. Things will start moving forward. And Uranus has also been moving retrograde, and it's been clashing with Saturn. So Uranus is the planet of new technology, of rebellion, of uprising, and we certainly have seen it in action over the past 2 years. And when it moves retrograde, things kind of get locked in or locked down. And when it starts moving direct, we start to find new ways to make money and stuff like that. I know you've been talking a lot about NFTs. And a lot of financial astrologers connect NFTs to Uranus's movement through Taurus, because Taurus is the sign of financial stability and gaining money. And Uranus means, do it in a brand new way that nobody's thought of before. And so things are probably going to start rocking around the 18th of January when it comes to NFTs and stuff like that. So pay attention to it, be more open-minded about it, and try and be aware of how they are shaping the art world. I don't think it's a fad. Personally, I don't think it's a fad. I mean, sometimes I wonder, but I think in astrology-wise, it looks like it's here to stay.
And certainly from a business perspective, from what I'm seeing, it's here to stay.
Yeah. And and your sun is actually in the same degree as Uranus right now. So you are being changed and challenged to look at yourself in a brand new way, where your old way of being is being kind of destroyed, eliminated, and you're rising up from the ashes kind of new. So it's very abrupt and very hard, but you might find it a little bit easier once Uranus starts moving direct on the 18th.
I feel that upheaval more so than, say, a normal, as you're coming into a new year, everybody I think feels that sense of change and doing things a little different and having new, healthier habits. But I felt it kind of rumbling for about 2 weeks that I need to just make some big changes, positive big changes, but it's more of a feeling of force than it is a feeling of suggestion. So I'm glad to be the stars agree.
Yeah, this planet does not allow you to just, stand back and change your mind, or just, kind of slide by it. It's like it basically breaks down everything that doesn't work. And I also connected to the environmental issues too, because Taurus is a sign that is basically Earth, and it's ruled by Venus, which is like, nature and the planet Earth. And the fact that Uranus is there, it's kind of forcing us to face this, whether we like it or not. So to face environmental change.
So for somebody who is a complete novice at this and, is curious about how this works, tell us, first of all, how you got into astrology and what your journey has looked like.
Sure. I mean, I was into astrology when I was really young. My mom was into astrology, and I started to, I listened to her, and she would pick up books like Linda Goldman's Astrology, Love Signs. I think that's a classic, and it's fun to read, and it's well written. And I kind of got interested in reading charts in the 80s, I would say, and I hooked up with the Astrology Association in Toronto, and I took courses with them, and I studied with them. And the cool thing about astrology is the more you learn, there's more to learn.
The more you learn, the less you know.
But the amazing thing is, I'll say things to people, and then they come back and say, wow, Lydia, you were just right on, right?
Wow.
So how it works, it's kind of like a woo thing. It's like, I don't know, it could be gravity, could be just energy around us. Like everything is ruled by energy. And I think that's one way of kind of reading the energy that exists, that kind of affects all of us.
So how does it tie in with your own work? Are you somebody that looks at your own chart and kind of plans your year and your movements and your creativity around that?
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of the reasons why I've kind of gone public with it. And I do these short little shows at 9:00 in the morning, because it actually helps me as well to kind of navigate my art and navigate my business according to astrology, because there's good times to step forward, and there's good times to step back, kind of like, the gambler song.
Know when to hold them.
Absolutely.
So February we see Mercury coming out of retrograde. What does that mean? What kind of headspace should we be in going into the second month of the year?
All right. So I'm just going to say, just so that people know, that Mercury goes into retrograde from January 25th to February 3rd.
I'm going to hide. I'm just going to hide.
Just jot it down, because there's good things about Mercury in retrograde. Like everybody says, oh my God, it's like the end of the world. It's not. It means that Mercury is the planet of thought, of intellectual thought. And he's the god that travels, right? So it affects thought, travel, your computer, science. And he travels from the Mount Olympus to the underworld. So the communication you get from your shadow self to your higher self. And when it's retrograde, it's kind of like, it's actually an illusion. Mercury does not go backwards, but because it looks that way from the planet Earth, that's why it's called retrograde. But it just means that you have to kind of have a contingency plan. And it's in the sign of Capricorn, which is organization, power, control, goals, and stuff like that. So we'll be just going through this period of bottlenecking. And then on February 3rd, we, get freed from that bottlenecking, and we start to be able to go with the flow again. But it's good to kind of keep in mind the lessons that you learned before that happened. So February is all about going with the flow.
Is there anything specific that you really recommend people don't do during retrograde?
I would just say, don't just assume that everything's going to flow easily. Right? So if you're planning a trip, plan a plan B, have a plan C, have a plan D, right? Just in case something goes wrong, or be prepared to do things over again if they're not working.
Maybe we've been in retrograde for like the past 2 years. That would explain a lot, right? No plans.
Yeah, I think, well, I think that, well, there's a whole bunch of other things like Pluto. The US is going through a Pluto return, and that has a lot to do with the politics that are going on right now. So yeah, do your research, listen to the other other astrologers talk about the Pluto return for the US, because it's kind of interesting.
Wow. All right, let me just pause 1 second because for some reason my battery is dying. So I'm going to get my charge. I think it heard us talking about Mercury.
Yeah, really. It said, that's it.
It's like, I'm out. All right, let's see. Okay, we are back in business. Okay.
Yeah, and so once it goes direct on the 17th, things are going to get really exciting because that planet Taurus, Uranus and Taurus that I was talking about, sextiles with Jupiter. So sextiles is an aspect, that it's an aspect that gives us opportunity. And Jupiter is the god of luck and good fortune. And it's right now, it's going to be moving into Pisces, which is great because it's at home in Pisces. It allows us to kind of go with the flow and find the energy and use our intuition to bring us luck and good fortune. So when those two work together, there'll be like sudden good things happening at that time. Good luck. You know how sometimes, you'll be plodding along, and then all of a sudden something fantastic just drops on your lap and you don't know how it happened. That's that kind of effect. So that's something to look forward to
In February.
on February 17th.
All right, February 17th, a very specific date. Now, this is just specific to me, right? We're talking about
this is to everybody.
All right.
But because you're a Taurus, it's easier for you because Jupiter is finally in a water sign. It's been an air sign all last year, and that's no fun for you. But in a water sign, you feel a little bit more comfortable with your emotions, and you'll feel more comfortable with the idea of going with the flow, and you'll be able to use your intuition a little bit better, and you'll see the opportunities come up and you'll be able to grasp them. And that'll help you. And since Uranus conjuncts with your sun, so your sun, which is your confidence and your essence of being in Taurus, meets up with Uranus, the changes that you're going to be making in your life actually bring you opportunities in your way.
Interesting.
Fabulous.
So I'm like triple circling that date. We're going to do something special on the 17th.
And that'll last for about a few weeks because those are slower moving planets. We're only going to be talking about slower moving planets because if I were to tell you everything that's going on every day, we'd be here forever. So.
Well, we've got nowhere else to be. So I'm just kidding. So, okay. So 17. So if anybody out there is listening, maybe this is a good day to puts a new series out in front of the public, or maybe start that new painting? Any other recommendations with this particular day?
Go apply for jury chose, man. Right? Or go talk to the gallery. Like if you're a Pisces, if you're a Pisces, a Cancer, a Scorpio, a Taurus, Capricorn, not so much Virgos, this is really a great time for you to put your best foot forward. And everybody else might find it a little easier than normal, because sometimes astrology doesn't affect you directly, but affects the people around you. And so when it's affecting the people around you and everybody else is in a good mood, your day becomes a little easier as well. Right?
Love that. Love it. All right. So we move out of February and into the last month of the first quarter. You are talking about rebellion in March. So tell us a little bit about that. Why are we rebelling?
Okay, Mars, the planet of war and strife and action and energy, enters into Aquarius. And at that time, we'll join up with Venus. So Venus, again, I said, was like an important planet for artists. And Mars is an important planet for artists as well, because it affects our energy level and our ability to shake things up. And Aquarius is a very rebellious kind of sign, has to do with the society and friendships and stuff like that. So we may feel like we're just ready to socialize again. And I have this deep feeling that this is my prediction, that they're finally going to get a hold of this COVID thing and it'll be behind us. Like, I really have this feeling that this is the last hurrah. And some scientists who have studied this, who are qualified, actually said this as well. But as an astrologer, from my point of view, it's going to be like a crazy back to socialization kind of energy, like the roaring 20s, like where we've been held back because we haven't been able to socialize or party or get together or anything like that. And finally, things are going to get a little bit better. But also, again, the NFTs situation, I think, is going to intensify. Also, abstract art, looking at art from a new perspective, right? New forms of expression will come up. Who knows, right? Through AI or weird stuff like that we haven't quite imagined yet. Like, that is just like, it's like the energy that created abstract art in the beginning. Somebody had to say, enough of these little dark landscapes. Let's just brighten everything up and put our emotions into our art. Same kind of energy is going to happen, where we're going to, maybe things won't be two-dimensional, or just like three-dimensional, or there'll be new innovations and stuff like that. And there's going to be a lot of rebellion with people who are holding on to the old way of doing things versus the new way. But I think there's going to be some big breakthroughs because of that. And some people will be made uncomfortable by this.
Now, who's to be uncomfortable? Can we shake that up a little?
Yeah, sure. It does square with the moon in Taurus, so a lot of Tauruses.
We don't like change. We don't like change.
Don't like change. May find it very hard. Scorpions too, right? Because it's just this tension of having to revolutionize your way of thinking. And I even think that when we go back to the old ways of being after COVID, they're not going to be the old ways. Right? There's going to be like this drastic awakening. People will still want to work at home, maybe. Yep. Right? The whole workplace dynamic will change. The whole idea of traveling to your office will change. Right? All of that is going to...
I just wrote down exactly what you said, because I feel like this is the year, the Great Awakening.
Yeah. And I feel that in March, that's the beginning of it, right? And April, moving on, there's this really cool conjunction that hasn't happened since 1856.
Is this the kapow that we're talking
That's the
about?
kapow. Yeah, you find the heart of gold. So
Okay.
Jupiter, the planet of thunder, the the god of thunder, the god of riches, the god of good fortune, meets up with Neptune, the god of dreams,
Mm.
the god of illusions, the god of imagination. Neptune is super important to artists as well. Just looking at your chart, you have Neptune in Sagittarius. So you might actually have a little bit of a struggle with that. Like,
Mm.
because we're going to have this more kind of new age, psychic, holistic kind of energy happening. But in a way, those two planets meeting up will bring about this great fortune that we can all take part of. That'll be like part of the awakening. So
Mm.
this is very lucky, but there on the bad side, there's going to be probably more floods, like, because that's a very watery element, right? Intensified, but emotionally, and probably maybe even from the ocean, or anybody who's working with water in their art, or through their art, or thinking about water, or thinking about the theme of water and how it applies to our environment, or how important it is, and stuff like that, will actually be tapping into this big collective unconscious message that brings us fortune. So
Mm.
don't ignore your intuition on April the 12th. And this is going to last for a few months. So these are both slow moving planets. So, but around April, that's when it really starts to work. And it's sextiles with Pluto. So that's opportunities. And Pluto is the Lord of the underworld in Capricorn. That has to do with goals and ambitions and striving forward. So the fact that all our work, all our hard work is going to actually bring us some good fortune. So hang on, right? Because I see April as being a really great time to take chances, right? All those planets are super happy in that sign. And even for America itself, because it's going through the Pluto return, it's going to be a really good place to be,
Mm.
because that's going to be like the center of building something great.
Wow. What about from a creativity standpoint? Is April a time that we should be in the studio, or is this a time where we should be putting ourselves out there more?
We should be putting ourselves out there.
Okay.
Right. I mean, if you are creating something, because Capricorn is all about striving and endurance and creating, then put yourself out there, but also work hard.
Mm.
Right. But sometimes you work hard, and you don't get anywhere and nothing happens. Right. And this is a time when all your hard work will actually accomplish great things.
And then you talk about going into May is when we should be starting something new.
Right. Right.
So,
So yeah, May's theme is light the fire. And I compared it to actually kind of lighting a fuse like you see in those cartoon shows, and the fuse doesn't seem to be doing anything, but actually it's like a slow burn.
okay.
And by June, you'll start to see the effects. So that is a great time to plan maybe an art show, right? There's a lunar eclipse on the 16th of May, and that lunar eclipse always intensifies everything. And so your dreams are going to be intensified. Your imagination will be intensified. You'll get some cool visions about what you want to do. And this is big for Scorpions and Tauruses, especially because that's where the eclipse is going to happen.
I noticed that Mercury goes into retrograde on my birthday, May 10th. Not
I
so
know,
happy about
yeah.
that.
But see, these big things kind of make the way. Like Mercury retrograde is small stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like your inventory, your numbers, or communication, and these are the big things. Like, so if it might be hard to communicate, but it just means you have to do it over again, or you have to clarify or follow up, right? But the eclipse is big, so it's good to just like, so if you have like a big art show that you want to have, approach the gallery during the eclipse. Mercury could be in retrograde, but then follow up, make sure that they got all your stuff, right? Talk to them, connect with them, and thank them and all that stuff, because just in case your stuff got lost, they'll be able to find it.
Is this like what's his name? Saint Anthony. When you lose something, the Catholics believe if you ask Saint Anthony, he'll find
That's
it.
right. Yeah. Or witches like to, I think we put a glass upside down on the counter just in case, to catch the fae that might have been like, stealing our stuff, to find it again.
It's where all the pens and odd socks go.
Absolutely.
All right, so May, we are looking at, okay, during that lunar eclipse, May 16th, want to
Yeah.
be taking some action to push our business or our business forward, maybe taking up, going through that to-do list of people we want to reach out to, maybe
Yeah, absolutely.
reaching out to
Dare yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just don't go for the small stuff. Go for something big, right?
Yep.
Go for the big city gallery. The worst thing that they can say is no. But when you're going with the flow, you never know what can happen.
Yep.
Right?
1,000% support that message.
Right.
Yeah.
So go big. Right? Because you have nothing to lose except for a no, and then just try again. And that's the beauty of Mercury retrograde. You can turn around and try again with somebody else that's equally as big.
So also in May, we're looking at water again. Water is, you mentioned that water is going to be especially lucky. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so that's the Scorpio influence of the Scorpio moon. So yeah, it has to do with sensitivity, your emotions, your deep feelings, and stuff like that, and coming to terms with what you feel passionate about, because water is very, very much about your passions and your deep feelings, and that's so important. So the moon is your emotions, so when it's in an eclipse, there's a sense that your emotions and your secrets and all those things are highlighted and brought to the forefront. So it's time to dig deep into that part of yourself. In order to be an artist, you kind of have to do that. You have to do the hard work, right? In order to become your authentic self and to understand your feelings.
Yeah, and I think there's an element of vulnerability that has to happen for us as artists. And I know we're in this strange time where we're kind of in this transitory time where we have had galleries and agents and people to do the talking for us previously. Now we find ourselves in this unique moment where we can get in front of the clients directly. But for a lot of artists, they don't see themselves as storytellers. When we're the original storytellers, that we, going back centuries, it was the artists that brought the news. It was the artists that brought light to certain disagreements and politics. And we have been storytellers historically for centuries.
Like, I think about Blake, who would write poetry and do his illustrations. And he had one of the first printing press, if not the first one. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he would basically hand out his poetry and illustrations to the people. And this is kind of similar to that kind of energy, right? And and in order to create great art, you have to be in touch with your vulnerability and your secrets. And you have to be able to face up to people who will challenge that. Right.
Is there any particular, since we're getting up to kind of the halfway point of the year,
right?
ask you a controversial question.
Sure.
Is there any signs that should absolutely avoid each other at all costs?
No,
It's creatively or romantically or otherwise.
no,
No.
no. Now, one of the things I thought about doing, and I may still do it, I thought I would do an astrology survival guide for relationships.
Love that.
Right? Because here's the thing, right? The sun sign thing is one thing. That's just one tiny part of your chart. It covers your essence. But like, for instance, you have a sun in Taurus, but your moon is in Leo. So emotionally, you're totally different with the crown.
We talked
and
about
the
my
hair.
May.
Yeah. And
My Leo May.
yeah, being able to go in front of people and perform. That is very Leo thing. That is not a Taurus thing, right? So by saying you're a Taurus and you can't hang out with Leos would be a lie. You totally get them on an emotional level. And actually you might be inspired by their passion and their generosity and connect to them on a deep emotional level. So I can't say that you wouldn't get along with the Taurus. You might actually learn some important things, right? Yeah. So, and everybody's chart is different. There are charts where one person, if I do a comparison chart, I might say, ooh, they're gonna have a hard time. But not just by their sun sign, by all the other planets and how they interact with each other.
What's kind of I can usually pick out of a room after like a couple of minutes conversation a Cancer. I could tell a Cancer really easily, and a Gemini. Those are the two that and that's mainly because I know them. Like my mom is a Gemini, my brother's a Cancer. I can see the very obvious traits of those two signs. What for you is the easiest to recognize, or is it even something that you can pull from a first couple of minutes encounter?
I think because I know too much, I try not to jump to conclusions. I can usually pin down somebody's ascendant. So that is how they come across.
Okay.
Right. And then after talking to them for a few minutes, I can probably figure out what sign they are. No guarantees, because some people, it depends on, where their sun is. Because if somebody's sun is in the 12th house, there's a house system, and that's even more complicated stuff. But if their sun is in the 12th house, they have a tendency to hide their light. So you might not be able to guess who they are. So you have a moon in the 12th house. So you hide that Leo emotional part of yourself. You may even have trouble dealing with it, and yet it is very much a part of you.
What does that mean, though, in like basic terms? Give it to me. I can.
Okay. So yeah. So what it would mean would be, so you might have problems accepting the queen within. Right? So like, let's say you're taking a selfie of yourself, right? And you want to post it, or once I did this reel that recently that made me kind of uncomfortable, but it was like all the great things about me, right? And because I have a Leo ascendant too.
That's why I love you.
But I looked at it and I was like, holy shit, am I crazy or what? This is nuts, right? So you kind of have that going on with you, but it's more of an emotional thing for you even, right? To bear yourself emotionally, your pride. And the pride is your weak point, right? So if somebody attacks you on an emotional level, attacks your pride, you will probably feel very uncomfortable.
Yep. Nailed it. Got it in one.
Yeah.
It goes back to, I think I've shared this with you before, but like having the 200 fantastic reviews, but that one review will just, I will say formally, because I'm much better, and I think a lot of that is to do with age and just really not giving a crap, but it used to take me to ground.
Yeah, me
like
too.
for
I get it.
emotionally for days. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, because it's your pride that's being attacked,
yeah.
right? And your emotions, and you might have problems dealing with your emotions. But the thing about the 12th house is that it also has to do with service.
Mm,
So the more you help other people face their emotions, the better you can process your own.
mm,
So that is something that you can think about, if you're having a hard time. And you do that. You coach other artists
yeah.
who also suffer with those stuff, because it's really hard to get criticism sometimes, right? I mean, I had one professor in a university that actually burnt somebody's work. Like, he was a design professor.
What?
And he actually set the work on fire.
I hope he doesn't still have a job.
No, I think he's not with us anymore, thankfully. But it's like that stuff can crush an artist,
My
especially
God.
because artists have a tendency to bear their emotions out
Yeah.
and to feel very vulnerable. But we have to kind of develop a hard shell. So yeah, and to be able to handle it and to understand that criticism is nothing about us, it's about the person who's dishing it out, right?
Yeah.
But that comes with age.
Yeah. I think as soon as I hit 40, I was like, fuck him.
Yeah, exactly.
You can bleep that out, Mildred. All right. So moving into the summer months. So we have June. What is going on in June? How are we shaking things up halfway through the year?
Well, Mercury goes direct, which is great. So we'll be able to communicate, we'll be able to talk about stuff. Saturn moves retrograde, which isn't bad. That means restrictions get lowered and new ideas come up, because Saturn is all about restrictions and hard work and resistance. So for it to go retrograde is not a bad thing. It means that we kind of get a break, right? We get to review our position and think all the dramatic changes that we've done up to then. And Neptune starts to move retrograde, which means that our sense of denial and stuff like that is actually lowered. And we can actually face reality for what it is. So the bad thing about Neptune is that it may cause us to live in this world of denial.
Okay.
And when it's retrograde, we're actually, oh, okay, this is what's really going on. Right. And so, but your intuition intensifies as a result. So this is all about thinking ideas and moving and travel and learning new skills and, paying attention to your intuition. So that's June.
So that's June. And then July, we're going to talk about self-care.
Yeah, because Mars enters into Taurus. So Mars, the planet of action and war and fighting and stuff like that, enters into Taurus. So it feels very solid and more productive. So it's not as intense that it wants to fight everybody. Like if Mars is in Aries, that's where it is. Right? Where everybody argues with everybody else. But when it's in Taurus, things slow down. We take a more practical view of things. That's July 5th. So just right after your America Day.
America Day.
You can tell I'm a
July
Canadian.
4th, Independence Day. Which is
Day.
always, let me just say, is always a weird holiday for me as a Brit living in the States. But yeah.
I know. Well, we call it Canada Day. That's why I made that faux pas. Right?
I try not to get offended
Day.
that it was the day that, my now fellow civilians threw our tea in the harbor, hitting us where it hurts most.
I know. And Pluto was in the same sign that it was then that it is now.
Wow.
Right. So that's what I mean by Pluto return, right? So it's probably going to be an intense day anyways. Mercury enters into Cancer the same day. So we're more about care, self-care, developing security, emotional healing, because it's been been a rough few years, right? This is our time to kind of, focus on our financial security and our creative security. And it helps when you're helping other people around you. And Jupiter starts to move retrograde on July 28th. So it's mostly a slowing down period. So I guess we're taking it easy, maybe going back into the studio, creating stuff, doing some art therapy if you need it, you know. And yeah, and mostly it looks like a fun month. It doesn't look that bad.
So we can hit the beach.
Yeah, we can hit the
Like,
beach.
do some self-care. And then we gear up for August, which is time to get organized.
Yeah.
You talk about
So-
polishing up your image. What's happening in August?
Yeah, so Mercury enters into Virgo. So that's like, getting everything organized, getting your studio clean, right? Making sure you have all your supplies that you need. Venus enters into Leo on the 11th. So after we do all that, we can go big, we can do glamorous stuff. We can once again put our best foot forward. For you, that's awesome, because you'll find it easy people will accept you because your ascendant is in Leo, right? So
Mhm.
you'll find that people will find it easier to be charmed by you. So put on the charm, use it
So
to your
August, all
advantage.
right, August, charm the pants. Okay, no, I got it. August.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Uranus goes into retrograde, so things will start calming down. The weirdness will start calming down, which is good. And then August 25th, Mercury moves into Libra, so it's all about aesthetics and value and making things look beautiful. And so it's a great time to just go crazy with your creative stuff, right? You'll find it very productive.
Love that. So as we move into the later time of the year, into September, we're talking about healing. What's happening in September?
So I think that the beginning part of the year was so freaking intense, and last year, that we still have to kind of do some healing for ourselves to kind of make sense of what actually went down, right, within ourselves. And we had all this time to isolate and to really, the beauty about isolation is it kind of lets you find a spiritual path, kind of like walking into the woods to be by yourself, to find your spiritual power that'll push you forward, because you don't have the distractions that you normally get when things are when they were normal, because I don't think they'll ever be normal again. But yeah, so yeah, Venus moves into Virgo, so that's your art, into healing. Virgo is all about healing. It's all about order. It's all about fixing what's broken in you. And Pallas, which is Pallas Athena, is an asteroid. So asteroids, I haven't really touched on them too much because there is so much to talk about. But she's important to artists because it represents the fight that we want to fight. So it enters into Cancer, which has to do with nurturing and taking care of yourself and making adjustments to make sure that your boundaries are secure, right? And that you can help find your way. And it's also a great time for art therapy. September 9th to October 2nd, though, Mercury moves into retrograde again. So after all that organization, things will go a little
Throw it
bit
out the window.
disorganized. Yeah, well, it comes in, it's more of an ebb and flow kind of thing, right? Watch out for critical thinking, especially your inner voice. If it's being really critical, you might feel a little unbalanced. In Virgo, Mercury is usually at home in Virgo. So I find that when Mercury goes retrograde in one of the planets it's in home with, either Gemini or Virgo, things get a little bit more hairier than normal, right? And your Mercury is in Gemini. So that is a time, I will say, do not go into any art shows.
Wait, give me the dates. September.
September 9th to October 2nd.
Oh,
Don't make
wrong.
any big plans.
Okay,
right?
so I just want to say we're supposed to get remarried. I'm supposed to do my wedding. We haven't set the official date yet, but I think
Right.
you're just telling me not to do it between September 9th and October what?
October 2nd.
Okay.
So do not do that.
Okay.
Right.
You can give me some good dates for my renewing of
Well,
my
actually,
vow.
that one time when I said Pisces and that is Neptune and Jupiter were conjunct,
Mhm.
that is a good day to get remarried.
What day was that? Where were we?
That was March, I think.
Oh, that's too soon.
It's too soon? Okay, then we'll look at some.
We'll look at the back end of the year.
All right. Well, don't do it then, right?
Okay. So
Okay.
go ahead, finish what you were going to say. I'm sorry.
Let me move ahead.
Well, before you do that, let's
Okay.
let people know that once we've gone through the year, we're getting into that last quarter now. Lydia's going to tell us how you can get in touch to have your own personal artist reading. So do stick around. We've got more information about that coming. So Lydia, let's talk about the last quarter of the year. What's happening in October?
Okay, so October is whatever you start in May, because there's only 2 eclipse months this year. Sometimes there's more, but this year there's only 2. So whatever you started in May, you need to kind of finish up in October.
Okay.
So you're inspired. It's like a Taurus Scorpio thing. Again, it's a Taurus Scorpio thing because the moon is, when it's full, it's opposite to the sun. So that is a time to kind of think about, what did you put into play during the first solar and lunar eclipse, and what is it that you need to kind of finish up by then. Mercury moves direct again October 2nd, so clean up any messes that were left behind, clarify things, have conversations with people who may have misunderstood you, or you may have misunderstood them, because that happens, right? Pluto goes direct on the 8th, which is great. So your deepest desires and secrets surface. You have a green light to do some shadow work, but you also see the shadow in other people too.
So you might pause there though, because for somebody who doesn't know what that means, tell us what shadow work is.
Okay, yeah, sure. So like sometimes your shadow, it's very Jungian, but it's that part of you that is the opposite of your higher self. So for me, I could be very critical sometimes, right, to myself and to other people, or sarcastic, or I could be a fashion police, which is really hilarious, right? But it's that part of you that you're not really happy with, but
Right.
it exists, or you love spreading rumors, or you love listening to rumors, or you might be secretly greedy, or you might collect stuff, right? That is your shadow that you're uncomfortable with, and you will see it very clearly then. And so that's a great time to confront it, because part of being your authentic self is understanding that, not necessarily changing it, maybe mitigating it, right? But coming to terms with that, because that's how you can make changes to become a better person and a better artist. Right? Like for an artist, the shadow self might be the critical voice inside their head that keeps on saying, oh, this is crap, like this art sucks, or I'm not really getting anywhere, all my art sucks, like and stuff like that, or I've got 100 no's from during shows, and I'm never gonna get famous, or whatever, like that is your shadow self talking away, right?
Yep.
And so to understand that this is just a voice in your head, and it's not necessarily reality, right? Because Stephen King, he has a book on writing that I recommend. He basically had so many letters of rejection. He had a nail in his basement, so many letters of rejection before he actually got noticed, that they didn't even fit on the nail in his basement.
Wow.
Right? And still he persevered.
Yep.
right? And look where he is today. It's the same with artists, right? So, but by understanding that voice in your head, it helps you overcome it,
Mm.
right? But you'll also see it in other people.
Mm.
So sometimes, like, you might have a friend that you think is a little narcissistic, and you see them acting out, but they're actually acting out something that's within you too,
Mm.
right? Because everybody has a level of narcissism, right? But to be able to see it in them, you have to kind of also be aware of it, how it exists within you.
Mhm.
Because all you can do is really change yourself and
Yep.
how you interact with that friend.
Right.
Right.
Good stuff. Hard stuff, but good stuff.
Yeah, hard stuff. Yeah, but it's big. So that's on the 8th. And October 10th, Mercury enters into Libra. So we're balancing things out. We're looking at both sides of the story. So that offers us even more clarity. And again, once again, we're focused on aesthetics, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever seen the Goth aesthetics since it's October. Some of those houses are just incredible. Like there's people that are painting their houses black and that all the decor is black and white inside the house. And it's pretty creepy, but it's really cool.
Where is this? Just all over?
All over. Yeah. If you do a hashtag search for Goth aesthetic, that's
Oh,
pretty
all
freaking
over
amazing.
that. That's so fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And so that is kind of a Libra, going into Scorpio kind of energy, right? Because we're heading towards Halloween. And October 23rd, Venus enters into Scorpio. So, pull out your skulls. Right? Don't be afraid to do art that has to do with sexuality,
Hmm.
right? Because that's a Scorpio theme,
Hmm.
right? The vulnerability, the emotions, the darkness, the intensity, all that stuff can be explored through your art, which is really great. And for you, you have Lilith, which is an aspect of the moon where it's furthest away from the earth, and it actually represents your feminine darkness in Scorpio at 14 degrees.
Feminine darkness in Scorpio. What date?
So this is well, Venus goes into Scorpio on the 23rd, but it'll start highlighting that, right? So for you, you'll be able to really get in touch with that.
Is this like my witch energy? My dark
Yeah,
witch?
that's totally your witch energy.
I love this.
Right. And in Scorpio, it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Right. And October 25th is a solar eclipse in Scorpio. So that's what I was talking about, the passion, the shadow work, the darkness, the preparing for Halloween, facing the ideas of death and sex and things that you can't control. That's all very Scorpionic themes. So it's really good to kind of dive into that. And then on the 29th, Mercury enters into Scorpio. So we have a whole bunch of planets in Scorpio. So that's a great time to just do dark art. Just to, whatever that means. If it means going to life drawing classes and painting nudes, that's fine.
Hmm.
Or if it means like, I don't know, playing around with magic, right? or doing your taxes, because that also is money that doesn't belong to you, right?
Right.
All those things can be kind of faced and dealt with and talked about, and it's kind of like opening the door to the, like, Pandora's box.
Hmm.
And on the 30th, Mars goes retrograde, so after that things really start to slow down.
Thank
It's okay
goodness.
to
This feels like a bumpy ride through October.
It is. But it's your chance to kind of build a strategy and think about where you want to go. Because, like, basically what it is, it's like waves. Like there's an intense wave moving forward, and then there's a recession, and then the next wave moves forward. And that is basically what this year is kind of like. right? Because there's a lot of intense moving forward. And I think with change, that's what you have to kind of face up to, the idea that when big changes happen in society, they don't just happen overnight. You just don't wake up and all of a sudden, you know, I mean, maybe that happens in the movies, but but you know, things change slowly, but they change permanently, right? So, you know, especially when you're talking about environmental issues and stuff like that, right? You know?
Yeah. Do you think it's a year where we'll see more conversations about around that, or
Absolutely.
should I say more
We're being
action?
forced to face that,
Mm.
whether we like it or not. We're being forced to face the fact that we have to do something about the environment. And a lot of this is about the powers that be, not so much. I mean, we can do, we're the small people, we can do some things, but we are not the powers that be. But revolution, uprising, changes, whether we like it or not, like COVID, like, you know, fire, like fires going out of control, like weather system going out of control, force the powers that be to do something about it, whether they like it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of shifting and shaking I'm seeing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
what?
go ahead.
No, please, let's talk about November. Let's.
Yeah. November is the light in the darkness.
Mm.
So it's new hopes after a very stormy October. And November is kind of, that's where I said change must happen. So we're getting closer and closer to the fact that we have to understand that things are not going to be the same. Right? I mean, I'm not saying that we're not going to socialize, or, you know, there won't be brick and mortar art galleries. I think all that will exist, but it'll kind of, it'll revolutionize the whole system of being an artist and what that means. It's just like, you know, in history, for a long time, the church would sponsor artists and artists would paint for the church. And then, you know, eventually that broke away and it didn't work anymore. And now, then there was like art for art's sake, right? That whole movement was very revolutionary. And now we're going into another period of artistic revolution where the small guy gets to sponsor themselves, for better or worse.
Yep. Yep.
Right? Yep. You know, and gallery owners can work with that. But they can't stay in that same place where they ruled the roost anymore.
Right.
Right. So they can, you know, they can work with the internet, they can work with artists on the internet, they can find out how to discover new artists through different ways. And the whole idea of investing in art is going to be different.
So I just want to point out that in your notes, November 8th, it could be a shit show.
Yes, it could be a shit show. Yeah, that's the lunar eclipse. So we've gone through the solar eclipse. So after the solar eclipse, there's the lunar eclipse, where it's the full moon. So it's the Taurus versus the Scorpio. And also, so the sun, Mercury, and Venus are in Scorpio, and Uranus, that planet I was talking about in Taurus, clashes with that. So once again, we're going into, and I think you guys are having an election.
Right. Wait, 2000. Oh, it's the prime, not the general election.
Not the general election, but the halfway point election.
There you go. Yep.
Right.
Wow.
But it's going to be really crazy.
Not surprised.
Right. And a lot of other astrologers have been just saying, oi. Right. Because, yeah, again, you have the old world versus the new world. So like the whole uprising, the Pluto return, right? You know, vaxxers versus anti-vaxxers, right? People who think Trump is a great president and people who don't, right? And I'm not going to get in there politically, but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of division going on.
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people will be trying to hold on to what's old when it's gone,
Mm.
right? And it's going to be pretty drastic. So yeah, and there'll be protests and uprising, and as artists we are responsible to hold on to our ideals and our beliefs, and be able to portray our art in such a way that we make a difference to society,
Mhm.
right? That is, I feel, our responsibility as artists.
And
And
as storytellers, like we talked about, we're the storytellers. Like this is
exactly.
document this time for future generations, so we don't repeat
And,
the same mistakes.
and this squares with Saturn in
Mm.
Aquarius. So we're talking not a T square, but a grand cross.
Doesn't sound good, whatever it is.
No. So grand cross is when you have 4 planets at 45-degree angles squaring off against each other, right? And these are all in fixed signs. And if you are into the tarot, the cool thing is the world card has the symbols of the 4 fixed signs. So Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio, and which one am I missing? Aquarius, Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio. Anyways.
Was it Aries?
No, geez.
It's all right.
Leo.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, so actually I think it's just a T square, so I'm wrong. So maybe you edit that out.
We can edit.
So it's a T square.
Okay.
That causes a lot of division and a lot of stress.
Doesn't sound good.
Right. But for Leos, it'll be a rough period for any fixed signs. Because, basically all you guys that, have problems with change are going to have to embrace it, whether you like it or not. Everybody. And if you have fixed signs in your chart, you should definitely take a look at that and see how it affects you. Right?
What are some things that people can do to manage that time?
Know that whatever comes around goes around. That's like the world card. That's what it is. The idea that we've been here before, that revolution has happened before, that humanity changes and evolves because of revolution, right? And mostly for the better. Because there's no witch hunts that are happening now, knock on wood. But you know what I mean? After the plague, there was the witch hunts, right? So this hopefully isn't happening. I think that we're heading into a new age where there's more communication. There's world communications thanks to the internet, right? I can look at Russian artists, for example, on Instagram, and I'm really inspired by them. And normally I wouldn't be aware of them that much, not contemporary Russian artists, but thanks to the internet, I'm aware of artists all over the world, and we all have a chance to kind of support and influence each other,
right,
for global change. So that's wild when you think about it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of astrologers say that this is the true beginning of the age of Aquarius, where it's kind of an awakening period. Wow. Yeah, and November 16th, Venus enters into Sagittarius. So that kind of shines a light. That's like lighting the candle in after a day of darkness. So there's a lot of stress and a lot of insecurity and a lot of wondering what the heck is going to happen next. And then the candle is lit and we suddenly find our sense of hope and enlightenment once more. And Mercury joins Venus on the 17th. So we're able to look at the big picture of what exactly went down.
Wow.
Which is good. And December is great. I mean, Neptune starts to go direct. So, I mean, we can be a little bit more, we can go on down
a little in December.
Yeah, we can relax. We can go down the river of denial if we want to a little bit. But for artists, it means that there's like a really good creative flow again. Mercury enters into Capricorn again, so we'll be able to, create goals and make out our resolutions around December 6th. December 9th, Venus again enters into Capricorn, which is it is now. So craftsmanship, projects and stuff like that. And December 20th, Jupiter enters into Aries. So it's a new path, a new start. And Jupiter in Aries is all about the adventure. Right. So I think that if you haven't been able to travel this year, you will next year for sure.
Love that. Let's get back out there for real. So in summary, yes, we're going to have some, it's definitely better, but what do you, be brutally honest, Lydia, what is next year?
I think we have to face the fact that things are never going to be normal, right? That there is no return to the old ways, that, that we as humans and as artists are evolving past that into a new phase, right? And I think the whole materialistic world view is going to be forced to change. And we're kind of getting that in the bottlenecking, where things are kind of gridlocked because of COVID and stuff like that, and shipping issues and stuff like that. But the whole focus on material gain and material just inconsequential material focus is going to end, because we'll start to realize things are more fragile than we thought.
Wow. I feel like I need a nap.
I know, it's quite the journey, right?
We're not even there yet.
Scratching the surface.
Oh, wow. All right, folks, if you want to go deeper, if you want to get more personal and see how this new year is going to affect you, what kind of dates you should be looking at to take action, when you should be creating, when you should be marketing, get in touch with Lydia. Let's get you situated with your own personal astrology reading. Lydia, tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's quite affordable. I mean, some astrologers ask for more money than I do. I usually ask about $120 for a 1 hour reading, and that's Canadian. Right? And basically you get a one-on-one chat through Zoom with me, and I show you your chart and I explain what's going on, and I let you know what it is. First of all, I look at your birth chart and tell you where your strengths and weaknesses are. And then we do a little bit of a transit talk, and I talk about maybe 3 months ahead, because it's best to break it down like that. And I talk about some of the good dates and challenges and some of the things that you should be striving for in those 3 months.
Amazing. And folks, when you do reach out to Lydia, let her know that you heard about the podcast. Let her know that you heard about this here, and we'll make sure that you get a shout out on the podcast as well. Lydia, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And also let folks know where they can reach you.
Yeah, so I'm Lydia Knox Art Witch on Instagram, Lydia Knox Art on YouTube, Lydia Knox Art on Facebook. And there's not any other Lydia Knox art around there so far yet. Fingers crossed. So yeah.
Fantastic. All right, 2022, let's do this. Let's see what you've got in store for us. This has been Smart Art Business Podcast. My name is Rachel Wilkins, your art business coach. Let's do this. Let's take some action. Let's kick some you know what this year, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. As a reminder, folks, you can go ahead and grab the Sellout Playbook at theselloutplaybook.com. It is packed full of goodies for growing your art business, reaching more people, and selling more art in 2022.